I'm testing a Mazda 3 again. And I'm not complaining because I really like this car. I like generally all Mazdas. But the thing is, it's gotten a tiny facelift. Not on the outside, not on the inside, but under here, the engine. That's why I have the hood slightly propped open. So, if we look at the engine, which is hiding under this snazzy cover, which you can unlock and open, and it's giving away quite a lot of heat, so we could maybe have a grill. Well, they changed the air intake a little bit, and the supercharger, even though Mazda refuses to call it a supercharger because it's so low pressure. But anyway, for the purposes of this, is a supercharger, and the result of that is 6 more horsepower and 12 Newton meters more torque. But also lower fuel consumption, slightly lower fuel consumption, and slightly lower emissions.
So, good stuff all around. I don't think much needs to be said about its looks, as this 4-door version in particular is, in my opinion, one of the best looking cars on the road. LEDs at the front and back give this Mazda a modern look, and they're more visible.
So the Mazda 3 still looks great at the front, at the back with these LEDs, the aggressive lights, and of course the dual exhaust system, which is not just for show. It has a purpose, of course, with the Skyactiv technology and everything. And you might think that there's not going to be a lot of space in the trunk here. By the way, this Mazda 3 is now pretty much as big as the Mazda 6 of the first generation. Just as an interesting tidbit. But when you open this up, I know we don't have a lot of equipment this time around with us, but look at this. I mean, I could get in here and well, travel like this. No problem. Actually, I've got more space. Look at it. There could be 2 of me in here.
The trunk is big enough for 2 of me then, which is a lot. The interior is quite spacious as well, and everything is just put together so nicely. Surfaces are soft and lovely to the touch. They also look luxurious. Every button in the car has an excellent mechanical feel as well. If you've noticed some strange dirt on the various surfaces, I can tell you we've been surprised as well. Someone must have cleaned the car with a dirty rag, spreading an oily substance everywhere. The model has the lovely 6-speed manual gearbox, although you can get an automatic as well. Mazda hasn't forgotten about physical buttons either, for which I give them huge props, as too many manufacturers are going for capacitive stuff.
So because I've already tested this Mazda 3 quite a few times now, and we know it's a very nice car, I will mostly concentrate on what has actually been changed, and that is the engine up front. The Skyactiv X, the 2-liter 4-cylinder gas engine, which can also operate sort of as a diesel. It uses the sparks only for a tiny little ignition of a tiny little amount of fuel in the top of the cylinders, which then expand, increase the temperature and pressure, and then ignite the rest of the mixture in the actual cylinder via compression ignition. Anyway, let's leave the technical stuff. Let's talk about the engine and how it feels. Now, if you put a gun to my head and said, do you feel any difference between this one and the previous iteration of the X? I would say no, definitely not. Now that's not necessarily a bad thing. I mean, you know, this is just a few horsepower and a little bit more torque, and it's been a while since I've driven the X. But I think even if you were to put two X's, one with the previous engine and one with this updated engine side by side, and I was able to drive both of them, I really don't think I'd be able to tell a difference. But, you know, that's not a negative point, really. It's always nice if you have a little bit of extra with an updated design. Now, this is the sort of stuff I was looking forward to with the X, because it is a revolutionary engine. It's taken Mazda many years of experimentation and trying to get this engine to actually work. Mazda has told me that apparently computers were not powerful enough, I don't know, 10-15 years ago to actually run an engine like this, because it needs a lot of processing power to see what kind of temperature and pressure and this and that is in each and every cylinder, every milli or microsecond or whatever it is. But yeah, I mean, you know, this is what I was waiting for. Mazda to make this engine and then to start working on it, updating it. They have the technology now, and now they can start updating it, giving it more power, more torque, and so on and so forth. And, you know, this is not quite it. This is just a slight update, but Mazda wouldn't be Mazda if they hadn't completely reworked how the air intake works and the supercharger and this and that. And, you know, it's pretty crazy. But I'm hoping this will, in the long run, show some big gains. I think one of the main things with this engine is, well, apart from the fuel consumption, sure, because that's the idea of it, and the lower emissions, but it is such a sweet engine to drive. With this 6-speed manual transmission, it is so nice to drive. I cannot overstate just how lovely it is to drive. Everything feels good inside as well. It's a Mazda, but the gear shifter and the engine itself, you know, most of the time you will be kind of working it as a diesel between 1,100 and 2,000 RPMs if you won't be driving really fast, of course. Or want a lot of power, because then you will have to shift into higher RPMs, because despite working sort of as a diesel, it doesn't have diesel kind of torque. So what kind of fuel consumption are we looking at here? Because that's really what we're interested about, that and power, of course. And as far as power goes, I can tell you, because we are so used to turbocharged cars nowadays and diesels, I've already said that the first time I drove an X, it's different. You have to get used to the fact that you have to really push the engine into higher RPMs if you want more power. It definitely does not have the torque that we're used to nowadays, and it doesn't quite feel like almost 200 horsepower engine. But I don't think that's really the point of this thing, the Skyactiv X. The point is really, like I keep saying on and on, the fuel consumption and the lower emissions. Now, the fuel consumption is far more interesting. This is a 2-liter, for all intents and purposes, naturally aspirated engine, even though technically it does have a supercharger up there, but it's so low pressure, I suppose Mazda just refuses to call it a supercharger, I guess. Anyway, my current average fuel consumption is 6.0 liters per 100 kilometers. Now that includes city driving, city outskirts driving, a fair bit of highway driving, and also some, you know, very slow traffic jams. And for this car to do 6 liters, and I drove reasonably economically, and a couple of times not so economically, I think 6 is an actually very good result. I was not expecting that. I actually got it below 6. I got it to, what was it, 5? Was it 5.1? No, it couldn't have been 5.1. I think it was 5.6 something when I was driving very carefully. But it seems this car actually prefers the motorways, because if you drive on the motorway, it starts dropping. Yeah, it was 5.1, wasn't it? Yeah. Okay, so I actually had to go and check into the into the system. Yes, it was 5.1 was my lowest fuel consumption, and the funny thing is, it was actually dropping even further because I went on the motorway. And if I didn't get off the motorway, I'm assuming that would have fallen below 5. I do have to say, now that I've driven the X engines a fair bit, if I was buying a Mazda 3, I would seriously consider it. Because, yes, I know it's not a racer, you will not be the fastest on the road, you will have to shift more, not if you get an automatic, of course, but it is so sweet of an engine, such a sweet engine, really. And just generally, such a sweet car to drive. And I do have to say, I just love it. I love it, really. It is very, very nice to drive. And like I said, if you're driving normally, most of the time the engine is so nicely refined, you will not even hear it. It's got enough torque to drive, you know, like an average person, not like a racer. But if you want, yes, you can shift down and put your foot down, and it's gonna do things.
The 4-door Mazda 3 with the X engine starts at just under 25,000 euros. For the fully equipped version with an automatic transmission, you'll be paying 33,000 euros.